Lieutenant Governor Treadwell, ladies and gentlemen, I'm General Joe Ralston, and it's my honor this evening to introduce our guest speaker. Before I do that, I would like to recognize our Nike veterans who are with us tonight, and I would like to ask them to stand. And could we give them a warm round of applause? And welcome back to Alaska. Before I introduce Dr. Khrushchev, some of the administrative pieces of this, Dr. Khrushchev will speak for about 40 minutes, and then there will be time for questions and answers. There are microphones down at each side, I believe, and we will end promptly at 8:30. First of all, we're very honored to have with us tonight Dr. Sergei Khrushchev. For those of you in my generation, whenever we hear the year 1957, we think of two things. We think of 1957 Chevys, which was arguably the finest car made by American. And we think of the launch of Sputnik, which was a wake-up call for American science and technology. Our guest speaker tonight was a Soviet space engineer, and he started working as a Soviet space engineer just a few months after the launch of Sputnik, and he did that for 10 years. He is a noted scientist, he's a historian, he's a professor, he's an author, and he had a unique front row seat during that time period of the great events of the Cold War of the 20th century. His father was premier of the Soviet Union from 1958 to 1964, and he was the first secretary of the Communist Party from 1953 to 1964. So here is a person who observed firsthand the interactions between the Soviet leadership of that time period and the leaders of the West. So I'd like for you to give a warm welcome to our guest speaker this evening, Dr. Sergei Khrushchev.
Thank you. Thank you, General Ralston, for your warm introduction. And thank you, everybody, for coming. And thank you all these people who was involved and invited me here. We spent 3 days in Alaska. I found it very sunny and very warm state. And now it's a little bit different, but people are still the same, friendly and nice people. Well, maybe like in other states in America where I spoke. I will speak today about Cold War nature and Cold War warriors, as we name them, President Eisenhower, Prime Minister Khrushchev, and President Kennedy, and the nature of the events that we witness and from which we did not learn all the lessons that we have to learn. If we talk about the Cold War, first of all, we have to find out what does it mean, the Cold War, from where it came and where it gone. Cold War is not a unique situation in our history. It was the part of our competition, confrontation for domination in the world. And before, if we talk 20th century, it was 2 wars about this, First World War and Second World War. But after Second World War, all these previous countries that was competed with the dominations, it was the Great Britain and France from one side, Germany and Austro-Hungarian Empire in the First World War, Germany and Japan in Second World War. They went out. Two of them were defeated, two of them became weak, and then two powers emerged who participated in both of these wars, but was not who initiated. It was the United States and Soviet Union, and they tried to find out how they will deal with each other in these new circumstances. But it was very different circumstances, because before, we don't know, and we didn't have the nuclear weapons. And now, with the nuclear weapons, it became clear to the leaders, not on one time, but slowly, that in the real war, you more lose than you will gain. And nobody is starting the war if they're losing more than they're gaining. So the Cold War was the period where we behave the same way as during the real war, but without war. Now Cold War is ended. It will never come back, because now still in one superpower. But it was only a period in our history. Now it's the same confrontation in the world. No, not with the weapons, not with nuclear weapons, but with the economy. And we see the same competitors. I don't know who really competes in the United States now, European Union or China. And no difference that we are in the same alliance like NATO with Europeans now. They have their own interests in the trade, and we have our own interests, and we'll see. So it is the endless part of their life when we are fighting for the domination, for the better world. In the Cold War, we live in the very similar feelings. Both sides did not really plan to start the war, but we live under the fear that opposite side will begin this war. And it was different period of this time, which we'll cover briefly. First, it was beginning, and it was Stalin time. And he believed that the real war is inevitable. The Soviet army reduced from the 10.5 million in 1945, after the end of the war in Europe, to 2.5 million in 1947. But after that begin all the discussion in the United States, how many Soviet cities we have to destroy, 20, 30, 40. It depends how many nuclear weapons the United States had at that time. And Stalin believed, if I have these weapons, I would start the war. And he told the Americans will start the war, so we have to prepare for the war. And he started to increase his military spending, and the size of the army grew from 2.5 million to 5.5 million in 1953. And he have a big fear about this war, and he understand that it was impossible to really retaliate without nuclear weapons and that condition that they had. But we live in the same fear of the surprise attack, because Americans have the Pearl Harbor syndrome. We have June 22nd, 1941 syndrome when America attacked us. I remember when in 1950, our family moved from Kiev to Moscow. We saw it was anti-aircraft guns surrounded Moscow, and the boxes with shell were open, waiting for the invasion at the time. It was the fear. And for some reason, Stalin thought that Americans will start invasion from here, from Alaska, close way to enter the Soviet Union. And that just, they landed in Chukotka and then looked to the nearest road for about 3,000 miles, because there are no roads. But anyway, it was the 100,000 Soviet troops waiting American invasion in Chukotka. Many people there lost their health there, together with some of my relatives. Soviet Union didn't have the strategic bombers, and they built the first Ilyushin-28 middle-range bomber with a range about 600 miles. And Stalin told, so we have to build the airfields on the Arctic Sea, on the ice, and station there these planes. You can imagine, build the air bases on the ice. But he was the dictator at that time, an aging dictator, nobody can say no. So they told build this plan, and I remember it now, it was published documents when one of the Air Force generals wrote to the commander of the Air Force, you see, we will building these bases for 10,000 Ilyushin bombers, but we need also have air defense, the fighters, supply plans, and others. And this general responded him, don't be so stupid and don't ask any more questions because we have enough headaches with this order. So, of course, they did not try to do this, but you can see this. And this also the Stalin think how can retaliate United States. And so Soviet Union was surrounded by the American strategic aircraft bases that can reach most of the Soviet cities. But the United States was far away, and Stalin asked most famous designer in Soviet Union, Tupolev, can you build the plane that can attack the United States? And Tupolev, he was a wise and the old man, and he was a brave man, even he was spent some period of time in the Stalin's prison, and he told Comrade Stalin, I can build the plane that will be able to reach American territory. We know this plane is Tupolev 95 Bear, but it will never penetrate American anti-aircraft defense. I can build a plane that will penetrate American anti-aircraft defense, but it will never reach American territory. So it was the problem. And when this problem was raised to the full level, Stalin died. And all of us were very lucky on the March 5th, 1953. Yes, we expected many big problems that he could create it, so it was good time. And I think that if he not die for 1 year, I would not be able to speak with you, because maybe all of us will be purged that. So the new leadership and my father who came there to the power started to think, as he told me, what we have to do. Is the war with the United States inevitable, or we can deal with that people? And same time, the new president was elected here. It was General Eisenhower. And he started to think what to do. It was the first meeting, or one of the meetings with his advisors, national security advisors, and his generals. And they told him once more, Mr. President, we have to start war against Soviet Union now until it's not too late, and we will win this war. And he looked at him, he was a very wise man, and he told, yes, I agree, we will win this war. But what will be after? And they answered them, we don't know. And he told, if you don't know what will be after the war, you mustn't start the war. Because it is important what will be, more important will be after the war. And he tried to find out what to do next. And he spoke at the National Press Club on the April 16, 1953, and he sent the message to the Soviet Union, we can find some resolution of this situation. It was some, of course, conditions that any country took. It was, you remember, it was the Korean War, it was war in Vietnam, and many tension around this. And first time on the Cold War history when the speech of the American president was published fully from beginning to the end in Moscow Pravda, in the main newspaper. Next issue, it was comments on this speech, but there it was not. Of course, it was many tensions in this country too. It was in the, several days after, the Secretary of State Dulles gave another speech, very different than the President. It was never published in Pravda, but it was beginning. And then in May, Prime Minister of England, he was at that time temporary, Winston Churchill, made his speech in the House of Commons, was also published in Pravda, and he also asked what we can do. So it was beginning of the things. They wanted to negotiate. And here it is what we want to think, some philosophical things. What will make us lucky that we have strong leaders. Because what is the difference between the strong leader and the weak leader? President Eisenhower was a strong leader. My father was a strong leader. President Kennedy was a strong leader. And strong leader know that he is strong. And he have courage and easy going to negotiate because he not thinking that people will think that he is weak. You know, I am strong. I can go and negotiate. And if you are going and speaking face to face, it is only one way how to you start to resolve the problem. And then understood it will be not one meeting, not 5 meetings. It is very long process. But you speaking with each other face and face, and you understand what opposite side want. You explain them what you want. You have your position that moving from one side to another, you can know what you can accept, what you cannot accept without any conditions, and then you present it to the opposite side, that it will be, you cannot go such far because it will be unacceptable. And usually they are finding the common ground. It is like bargaining. It was the high price, yours low price, at last you are finding what you agree. And the weak leader is very different. Weak leader all the time have to think that I have to show that I'm strong. I'm strong, I'm looking. I think I'm with suspicion to all others that they think that I am really weak. So I want to present everybody that I am strong. And this weak leader prefer to issue the ultimatum because he don't want to negotiate. He is afraid that his opponent will be stronger than him, and he cannot do this with this. So he issue ultimatum, impose sanctions, and saying, if you will not do what I order, and sometimes he don't know what will be next, because if you issue conditions of the unconditional surrender, I don't think that without defeat in the real war, somebody accept this. And then you're pushing both sides to such situation where it was no real answer. And also such leader afraid to speak with other leaders, because if I'm strong, I know I can go with you and will speak, and I present you strongly what I want from you. And this, if you're afraid of this, you don't want to go directly. And you're sending your invoice. Secretary of State, Foreign Minister, Ambassador. But Ambassador is not you. You cannot replace yourself in many conditions. You cannot replace yourself like a husband, for example, and say, husband will represent me. The same, you can't replace yourself as the leader. Because if you're sending your representative, he have the order. Say this, and then come back, and we tell you what to do next. And it's making this big problem of the relations between countries. It doesn't mean that sometimes the strong leader is very, how to say, stubborn. For example, we know that John Foster Dulles, Secretary of State, who was the creator of the policy of the brink of the war, hated communist Soviet Union and didn't want even to make any step forward. But same time, my father told, yes, I know that Dulles is our bitter enemy, but he talked about the policy on the brink of the war. But he drew this line, and we know where this line, and he knows where this line. It is much easier to deal with him than with the weak leader, because you never know where this line. And maybe he can step back and then something happened and you will start the real war. It's much more difficult to deal with these people. So it was that story, and they decided they will meet. And they met in Geneva, 1955, leaders of the 3 Western countries and the Soviet Union. And it was first visit of my father outside the Soviet Union, because it was very difficult at that time and dangerous to travel abroad. Not because Stalin did not permit you, but everybody knows he didn't trust anybody, and you will come back, and then in a couple of years he accused that you are spying for somebody else, so they don't want to go there. So my father went there. It was his first visit, introduction to all these new leaders, and they met with the President Eisenhower, and they looked to each other, and they found that they are more or less the same, like the human beings. They can talk with each other. They can understand each other. Sometimes it was funny stories that my father told that in one of these meetings, when they have the break and President came to him and brought with him some handsome man and told, I would introduce me to my aide, Mr. Nelson Rockefeller. And my father told, oh, the same Rockefeller. And he told, yes, it was that Rockefeller. In the Soviet Union, it is he was a capitalist, so to have the big fat belly, top hat, and the tailcoat, he was like everybody else. And my father told me, I was so curious. He was a curious person. I wasn't able to touch him. So I put my fist on his both sides, and he was surprised. And then he did the same with me, and we laughed, and we became friends, really. Political friends, of course, not there. It was one of these examples. And it was beginning of the negotiation and misunderstanding, because the president introduced the open sky idea. Let's overfly territory of both sides to prevent the war, the surprise attack. It was Pearl Harbor syndrome. We have the same syndrome, as I told you, and America and the Germans overfly our territory. And when they invaded Soviet Union, they had better map than the Soviet military. And my father told, I look at these pictures that President presented me, and they were so good that I told no. Because it was the fear that if they will know how weak we are, it can provoke them to the first strike. And Americans and the president think if they not agree with this, there's something hiding. It was an idea, simple idea that nobody understands. We're hiding only one thing, that was nothing to hide. But, so, they came back from this meeting, yes, we can deal with that people, but we must be strong. And then it was second, how to do it. Military say, we have to balance our armed forces, and they were right. And it was the first example of this in 1955. It was Navy who wanted to begin the second stage of the rearmament of the Navy. And they asked for 130 billion rubles for next 10 years. And my father he's counted money. So he told, yes, you want this money, but really, do we need the Navy? Americans need the Navy. They have two ocean communication with Europe and others. We are on the land. We are not planning to attack United States. We don't have communication. I told, no, you don't understand. We have to confront Americans on the open ocean. And he was not a military person. He told, I was cautious. And then I asked the commander of the Soviet Navy, Admiral Kuznetsov, if today it will be the war, can you take over American Navy? He told, no. He told, and you're asking me to spend 130 billion rubles in the country where not enough food, where people live not in apartments but in rooms, In 150 feet apartment, upper room can live 6, 7 people, 3 generations. We need money to agriculture. We need money for this. We need for the consumer goods. And you asking this money. But American economy 3 times bigger than our economy. So in next 6 years, they will spend 3 times more money to rearmament their navy. And we will be weaker in comparison with them in 10 years. If you can take over now, you cannot do this. So he told, we have to rethink this. We have to think what we really need to our security, not negotiate, not there. We need this. And he told, we don't need surface navy. And he stopped all this navy program. He told, we need shore defense and we need submarines with the missiles, nothing else. If you ask now Soviets, admirals or officers who were the worst ruler in the world, they will answer Khrushchev. He ruined Soviet Navy and its glory. And they were right, but he saved some money. It was beginning of this understanding. Yes, we have to negotiate, but we have to say to ourselves what we need. And it was beginning of this development. At the first stage, we have no capability to retaliate. It was they told that only one way we can have to build the ballistic missile that can reach American territory, but it was not clear it will be such technology that we can build this missile or not. So my father beginning to threaten Americans, the world, to show them that we are much stronger than we are in reality. It was air show, I think in 1955, and we have 1 Tupolev 95 Bear and 10 Mississippi 3 Bison bombers. And I want to show, no, we're much stronger. So they show these 11 planes flew over the crowd and all this military attaché. They just flew around Moscow and flew second time, and flew around Moscow, flew the third time. And General LeMay, he thought, oh, it is their Air Force growing, they have air power, it is a bomber gap. We were fortunate that it was CIA and the U-2 program violated Soviet airspace that was absolutely illegal on the July 4th, 1956. It was a year after this air show. They make the photographs and they show the president. It is no bombers on the Soviet airfields. It's no bomber gap, and they just buried, no bomber gap. But then at the beginning, the missile gap, because my father still have this fear. So we just tested our first missile with a nuclear warhead with a range about 600 miles. If it will be on the west border of the Germany and can reach Europe. In 1956, he visited Great Britain. His first visit there, he took me with him. And it was negotiation, and then the Prime Minister Eden invited us to Chequers and the Camp David of Great Britain, and we sit around the chimney, and my father at that time understood that they present him as a predictable leader, and he started to play. He liked it, and he played this game all the time. So we're sitting around the fireplace, drinking tea, and he looked around and told, Mr. Eden, Mrs. Eden, do you know how many nuclear warheads need to destroy your islands? And they look at him and he says, this arrogant Khrushchev asking such question. And he looked at them waiting. You don't know? I know. 5. And we have them. And then he stopped. And when it was the Suez crisis, he reminded him. And he told the ambassador, remind Mr. Eden our conversation near the fireplace. And then we launched the Sputnik. It was great fear here, but I will not talk too much about all the things. And it was our first ICBM. Really, it was not a weapon, because each of these launch sites was too expensive, $500 million rubles, and my father told, no, it cannot be a weapon. We have to build something else. But we still built these 4 launch sites. And my father, in one of his speeches, told, we build missiles like sausages, and we have them. And I started to work in the missiles design bureau, and I knew all these things. I was naive. I came home, I thought, how to say that we build the missiles like sausages? We have only 4 of them. He told, I am not care how many missiles we have, because we are not planning to start the war. But Americans have to believe that we have all of them. It was part of this American missile gap story, what was not generally made, but the President Kennedy used in his electoral campaign. But my father told, no. That is good, but it is not the answer. Because he told not that not country, not political system will win, which will have better and more weapons, because you cannot fight for the better life to the other people. And he believes that our system is better than Americans. The same Americans believe that their system better than ours. And he told that system would win that present better life to the people. So we have to reduce our military spending and to start to work more and more in the building houses, production, agriculture. And he took examples of the United States. It was beginning with the openness and the exchange. And that time in the Des Moines Register, it was the editor, Terry Bernstein. He's published the op-ed and wrote, Mr. Khrushchev, why we will compete in the military fields? Let's compete in the real field on the agriculture. And my father read this article because you know, or maybe you don't know, but some people who are sitting here know that intelligence slide together this local newspaper and finding some news here and there. It was very easy. So Soviet embassy was subscribed for this newspaper that saw my father. He told, no, it's a good idea. And he sent the delegation, one to the Great Britain and one to the United States, and they travel around the country and send him a report. American report was 400 pages. Most of them the same, but they told, we visited one state in the United States, Iowa, and we met the bright man, and he was invented the new corn seeds, that is increase the yield more than 2 times. It's hybrid corn, and the name of this man was Roswell Garst. And my father was very much interested. He told, did we invite him to our country? He told, yes, we invited him. And Mr. Garst, he was a smart person, so he told, I will go to the Soviet Union. And in that Soviet Union, it was sanctioned for everything. The United States even didn't buy vodka from there, so it didn't sell anything to the Soviet Union. So Mr. Garst sent his letter to the State Department asking permission to sell some corn seeds and some equipment for this. And they told no. But he was a strong person from the Middle America. And he wrote, I am a businessman. I am not involved in any secrets. I want to do it. So they decided not to argue with him and wrote him letter that nobody other had in the United States. Permission to sell in Soviet Union everything what he want. He used it then for years. And he went in the Soviet Union, and the Minister of Agriculture called my father. He told, Mr. Garst is here visiting our fields, and my father was on vacation in Crimea, and now you know that Crimea existed and maybe know where it is. So he told, bring him here. And Mr. Garst visited him, and they spent 2 days talking. First day, it was just conversation of two men who like agriculture, like this thing. And they told what is here, how we do it, how we see this. Then it was the business talks, and Mr. Garst told this price, and was bargaining, and then they told that, yes, we want to buy this, and Mr. Garst told, what I offer you, not more. He told, yes, I will sell you. This is first-class seeds, second-class seeds, third-class seeds. My father told, no second and third class, first-class seeds. I will pay in cash. And at last, they had a deal, and Mr. Garst returned to the United States and sent telegram to State Department. I back from Russia, I met Khrushchev, he bought everything and ordered more. And they became friends, good friends, because Garst came here and he talked with our scientist and my father and told what you have to do, giving advices. Then later he came and said, you have better seeds than me, but I will present you with other technologies. That was next step, and you will buy this. By the way, it is the best idea when, if you are selling something to other country and not afraid that you are selling your secrets, because you know that next 2 years you will be much ahead of this. And they worked together, and when my father visited United States, they asked him from the State Department, where you want to go, whom you want to meet in our country. And he told, I don't know. You know your country better. But I want to meet one place there. I want to go to Iowa. They told, to Iowa? And I want to visit Mr. Garst. And he went there. It was a big crowd there. Mr. Garst showed there. He threw his compost, and Mr. Sulzberger, the owner of the New York Times, and it was a big story of the New York Times about all these things. But he promoted his farm, and my father looked in his fields and told, Mr. Garst, how many people work on your farm? He told me, my 4 sons, and in the harvest we hire a couple more. He told, so that means 7. And our collective farm, it will be at least 150. May I send somebody from you will teach them how really to work? Because my father didn't say that we confront United States. He repeated, you are more effective, you're working better, and we will be good students. We'll learn from you how to work, and then we will go ahead and surpass you, and you will join us, or we'll say you goodbye. It was his way of the competition in the Cold War, but still, of course, we have to be strong. And it was going back and forth, and at last it was the first visit to the United States, September 1959. I was with my father there. It was very interesting to travel around the United States. And my father was very proud that he was invited, because it was the first Russian and Soviet leader in all history who visited the United States. And my father all the time wanted to be recognized as equal. And you know that Americans don't want to recognize anybody as equal. So he had to press them. And he argued about all the details. And one of these, it was how many rounds of the salute will be in the arrival. And they told, you're prime minister, and it will be 18. And they asked for the president, and they told 21. I told, I want 21. He told, but you're prime minister. But he told, no, I am also first secretary of Communist Party. And he told, but it's party. No, it's our system. I am the highest rank. If it will be 18, when you will president will visit us, it will be all 18 for him. He told, but he's president. But no, he's the president, but he's head of the government. So at last, Americans protocol decided, forget about this. as much as he wanted. So it was many, but it was many details. He met with the people, he looked in their eyes. It was important when they look in the eyes of the people. You look how many military and the uniform on the streets. You cannot hide this. If you're a militarized country, it was no military people there. It was different people. People were ignorant and friendly. And in the beginning, when we come, although it was the crowd on the both sides of the road, on the Washington, D.C., people stand silent. Such faces. We didn't know that before it was police car is go through this and told, be silent, not cheer, not boo Khrushchev. But then it was, ice was melted, they saw that he is as any others, he liked shake hands, he liked just to talk with the people, like any others, and Americans, the same as now, very friendly people. And I remember I was with my father in Santa Barbara in our travel from Los Angeles to San Francisco. I saw the one young man with the big poster, Freedom to Kazakhstan. I remember this, I think in Santa Barbara, they know that Kazakhstan existed. And why it's freedom to Kazakhstan? And then they turned it on opposite side, it was welcome Khrushchev. And it was many other things. My father has a golden medal. It was for the peace medal. And he lost it in one of the small stations. And somebody picked it from the floor and gave to Lodge, who was the representative president. And he returned it to the Khrushchev. He was surprised about Americans. He told, they return this medal, not because it is gold, but it is the best souvenir. And he told, oh, Americans is very different people than any others. And it was also another story when he went to Pittsburgh and he saw the factory and it was some spots on the asphalt. Oh, he told, the same as Soviet Union. When visiting the factory, they repair all this asphalt. You did the same there. And he traveled around the factory, and one of the workers presented him with a cigar. My father never smoked. And he took from the watch and gave to this person. And he took this, and then next day he went to the lawyer and asked, for how much, not to the lawyer, no. He went to the watch store and asked, for how much I have to secure this to. And this watchman looked at this and he looked, oh, this watch, $20. He told, this the prime minister gave me where the watch for the $20, but it was these things. And then they spoke as a Camp David. It was difficult negotiation about Berlin, about disarmament, but it was two men who spoke with each other. And it was two stories that I want to tell you. First, it was the president asked my father, how you deal with your generals? And my father was surprised and told, He told, I will tell you. They coming to me, told, we need more money because Soviets make this design. I'm saying them, you have your budget and we have not it's enough money. But they pressing me, if you will not give us money, we will lose the war and then it will be your fault. And my father told, they have the same with my generals. And President told him, Mr. Khrushchev, maybe we'll sign the treaty between two of us against our generals. And they tried to do this. And then my father insisted, why you don't want to run for the third term? And the president told, it's the Constitution. He told, yes, Constitution, be very popular. You can change Constitution. And I know Americans like you, they will vote for you. And President told, I cannot do it, it is a Constitution. And he asked this question not because he was stupid or ignorant. He wanted to understand the American system. And when he returned there, he introduced the same two-term policy in the Soviet Union. But then it was U-2 flight on 1960, and everything just blew apart. And I have no time to tell this story, but it was an interesting story. I wrote the book, Nikita Khrushchev, Creation Superpower. You can read all this, my stories. And then he was replaced by the President Kennedy, when they also looked with each other. And they came to the most dangerous crisis in the world, Cuban Missile Crisis. And it was the crisis that brought us to the more trust, because these two leaders negotiated with each other every day. President decided not to attack Cuba in the very beginning, and it was his very wise decision, because he did not know that it is 93 technical nuclear weapons on the island that will destroy all the invading forces. And after that, they came out from this crisis with a bigger trust. On his speech on the American University, President Kennedy told, "We are very different with the Soviet Union, but we can work together to preserve the peace on the earth." My father spoke on the meeting with the Defense Council, and he told, I was there, he told, "We defeat our national interest. President Kennedy defend his own national interest. We have one in common. We want to prevent the war." And it was beginning of a new period. My father told on the same Defense Council, if we will have 400 warheads that can destroy American infrastructure, we'll stop building strategic missiles. You can count how many thousands we have now. And we stop building most of the conventional armament and reduce our army to 500,000, because it will be enough. Nobody will attack us. We will be safe. We'll have enough retaliation. And they signed Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, 1963. It was long negotiation and confrontations with Germany about peace treaty with East Germany. Soviet Union signed this treaty. They created the direct line between Kremlin and White House. It was not like now we can pick up the phone and call. They rented pair of wires from Western Union on their cable, so they will not wait for hours until they send their message. President Kennedy offered Khrushchev, let's go together to the moon. Let's send our people together. We'll save some money. So do it. My father told, yes, we can do it. They spoke about this in September 1963. In 2 months, President Kennedy was assassinated. A year later, my father was ousted of power, and everything came back. Military-industrial complex took power, and Soviet Union tried to balance all the branches of the armed forces of the United States. Navy, it was 700 surface ships. It was the strategic bombers, Air Force, 40,000 tanks. 40,000 tanks. And what happened, what my father told to his generals, if we will satisfy you, you will defeat us. Not Americans, you will defeat us. You will leave us without pencils. What happened with the Soviet Union? Because it was too big military budget. By the way, United States military budget is also too big now, from my understanding. And would they be in power longer to the end of the 60s? Maybe they will bring the Cold War to the end at that time. But the fate was different, and They prolonged the Cold War another 2 decades. Then Soviet Union disappeared, and now we live in another world, not less dangerous. And it was not easier to rule this world, because it was very difficult to rule this world. And we need strong leaders on the both sides that can look in the eyes of each other and to ask the question themselves, can we deal with that people or not? And convince them that on this condition we can deal. And if you will negotiate this way, it is no such crisis that you can resolve. Now I will stop because I talked too long, and now I am ready to answer your questions related with my talk, not related with my talk, good or bad. It is no bad questions. If you ask me bad question, I will give you bad answer. It will be nothing else. Thank you very much. Thank you. It is 2 mics on the both sides. And who will conduct, who will speak? Me or you? So, you want to ask questions? There's nobody who wants to ask questions, I think.
Hello, hello.
Please, let's begin.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you, but speak slowly.
Okay.
Because you understand my bad English, but I still have to understand your English.
Will do. I am a firm believer that the pen is mightier than the sword. I'm curious about when the CIA was disseminating the book Dr. Zhivago in Russia. What kind of effect did that have on the Russian culture, Soviet thinking? And also I have a recommendation too. As you travel around Alaska, I hope you have a chance to try some of our home distilled salmon flavored vodka.
Thank you. I would be it with pleasure, but now I take medication, not allow me to drink alcohol, but I think I will have some break and I will try it. About this distribution of all this propaganda, Dr. Zhivago, it was only part of this, it was many other books, and also it was the broadcasting of so-called enemy voices. BBC, Voice of America, Liberty, and others. You know, of course, Soviet Union also broadcast on the United States, but you'd never listen this. Because you live in the democracy, and you live in democracy in your own naive people, you believe mostly what you're reading on the newspapers. Even in the Stalin time, principal of our school, when he taught us class named newspaper, he told, I don't know how brave he was, he told children, when you're reading, try to read between the lines. And Russian all the time reading between the lines. And when they're reading something in the newspaper, and I'm doing the same now with Americans too, first they think what they're writing really it isn't true. Secondly, they're starting to find out what is the truth. So you have to find other sources, compare them. And then they're trying to find out why they lied in such a way and not other way, because they're curious. So Russian read all the things and they listen all these voices, and they rank them. The first on this was the BBC, and it was, I remember, it was Mr. Goldberg, who was a Russian emigre and was rough voice. He told, hello. Yeah, Mr. Goldberg, and told this. Then it was Voice of America. They don't trust Liberty because they was too direct, like the Soviet propaganda. Of course, they don't like. It was many other who broadcast on the Soviet Union, including the Chinese later. So it was something that put some influence on the Russians. And after the Cold War, when Russia became more open and they visited the Western world, not first time, then second time, and then many people told, you see, we don't believe Soviet propaganda, but most of the things that they told of the West was true, and we never trust them. So it was effective. Yeah.
You haven't mentioned anything regarding communist ideology and your father's and his...
What does mean, communist ideology?
Well, Marxist-Leninism.
Huh?
Marxism-Leninism.
No, you're talking just its words. What is the...
the guiding principle.
But guiding principles, what is the communism from your understanding? What is the communism? What is the basic idea of the communism?
Well, what my basic idea of would be a Christian outlook, but
what is your Christian outlook?
The Marxism-Leninism that empowered the Soviet Union, the Bolsheviks, to power.
But it is a mixture of the words. Bolsheviks are the people who are stubborn and want to impose their vision. And by the way, we have the communist Bolshevik, we have anti-communist Bolshevik. I will not torture you anymore. But when we talk about the communism, we have to understand what is a communism. Communism is the mythology which require that everybody have to be equal, the basic idea. Not equal opportunity, equal. And it was started long ago before the Karl Marx and Lenin. And from my understanding, I'm sorry saying this, the first communist was Jesus Christ, who just want to make all the people equal. Then it was Thomas More, then it was Campanella, then it was Karl Marx, that have the strongest influence on the world history. And Karl Marx was one of the best economists of the 19th century. He wrote The Das Kapital, that I don't think that you read it. I read it because I have to pass these exams. And I found it very interesting. 3 volumes, it is a critique of the British economy of the 19th century. Then, as the German scientist, and this is brilliant, he wanted to find the solution. And he wrote first volume about communism, which he never finished because he didn't know how to finish it, and nobody knows. And he told that everybody have to be equal. It will be no government. By the way, Republicans saying the same, it will be no government. People will manage there by themselves. It will be no money. So it is now you're going to very liberal, and it was direct exchange and many other things that looks interesting. And it was influenced the development of the world, but in the pragmatic West, it transformed in the social democracy welfare states. Russians like theory and like do everything line of the book. So Lenin was one of the dissidents who want to do it just under the book. And when it was revolution, he started to work under the first volume, which was not finished. And from 1918 to 1921, Russia was ruined. It was no agriculture, no industry, everything turned apart. In 1921, it was not he first, it was the Leon Trotsky and his Trotsky supporters like Sokolnikov, others, they told, we have to do something. And Lenin made the very bold thing. He decided it's not working, and he presented new economic policy. If you're presenting something new, sometimes it means that you're returning to some well-known before. So it was not new, but the old economic policy that he will allow the private enterprises with some limitations and other, and he told it is very serious and it is for the long time. You can imagine, you fought civil war for the communism, for all these things, and now all these people against you fought now reappeared, and they became wealthy, and they're living much, much better than you are. And you lead is saying that we have to accept this. It was strong opposition, but Lenin was strong, and he told we have to do it. In 4 years, Russian economy just started to flourish. Everything appeared there. They don't remember what was there. Unfortunately, Lenin died, and then their successor make very different things. What I want to think, we have to make distinction between the idea, the words of the communism, Marxism, Leninism, others and realities. The communist idea died in the Soviet Union in 1921. After that, it was state capitalism, centralized economy that showed it is not effective, but it is a very different story. About the Bolsheviks, it was the same. In the 1991, it was the new revolution there, new people came to the power, it was new Prime Minister Igor Gaidar, and I remember how they told these people, they also were Bolsheviks. He told, we talk about Karl Marx, that he's genius. He's not genius. He wrote his book, Das Kapital, that was just nothing. He really was only a drunken German Jew. But I found the new book. Hey, this is a real book. It was written by Milton Friedman from Chicago. And we will now build our new economy by this book, line by line. What happened? They ruined Russian economy. Because you have to do yourself. You have to think yourself. When you read book, you mustn't follow what they. You have to make your own decision. I don't think that your own business. You're just reading some book and then making a decision, and they blaming the author that he was bankrupt. So, more questions? Yeah.
Dr. Khrushchev, I have a question regarding Ukraine. It's a two-part question. First, can you talk about the reason that your father gave the Crimea to the Ukrainians, and what was the context of that, and was there opposition at the time? And secondly, in talking about strong leadership between your father and Eisenhower and Kennedy, can you comment on President Obama and his handling of the situation in Ukraine, and do you think he's handling that properly?
About Crimea, very simple. It was many stories about this that they can talk long and long. But in reality, it was very simple. The Crimea is an arid country. It was not the research area on the South Crimea, but all this mainland. And in 1950, they have 5-year plan, decided to build the hydroelectric dam on the Dnieper River. And in the next 5-year plan to build the canal, one to the Donetsk region, where we have now the rebels who are fighting there, not Russian fighting there, it's Ukrainians fighting there, and also to the Crimea, that name South Ukrainian Canal and North Crimean Canal. And when they make the new plans, the planning committee make their draft and present the draft to the government with many questions, full volume of the question. And one of them, it is no problem with the Ukrainian canal that go in Ukrainian territory, but this canal to Crimea will go from Ukraine to Russia, Russian Federation, and you think that it is not important. It is untrue, because it was two governments, two prime ministers, and they will then blame with each other with all these delays, mistakes, and the central government have to deal with all these things. And they propose, let's transfer Crimea from the Russian supervision to the Ukrainian supervision, because you see the Crimea just surrounded by Ukrainian territory, And my father looked at this, he told, it's a good, reasonable thing, let's do it. And they did it. Nobody thought that sometime it will be an independent country. It was part of the Soviet Union. So there's no ideology behind this. It was no some philosophy. It was just business as usual. When we're talking now about fighting in Ukraine, it is very sad story, because I'm half Ukrainian, my wife half Ukrainian, her relatives just live in the eastern Ukraine, and she speak with them, and we know it's just Russian fighting there. Their children fighting there. They're fighting for them. Why? Because Ukraine is a very complicated country. It was not only one piece. The eastern Ukraine, they were part of Russian Empire from 1654. They are Orthodox Christian. And they have their own culture. The Western Ukrainian, they, for all this history, they have the branch of the Catholicism. They're not pure Catholics, but so it was difference like Shia and Sunni in the Iraq. And they was part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, then part of Poland, and they became part of Ukraine only on 1945. And they didn't like each other. I can say that they really fight with each other, but it is like in this country, you have Republicans, you have the Democrats, and you know your relations which is other. My good best friend, he's the Democrat in Rhode Island, and he once, we've gone with him with Sona, sitting there, he told, you know, I looked in my family tree, and I found that my grandfather was a Republican. and I just smile on him. It's the same. They were born together like here by constitution. First, Ukrainian president was from the west, second from the east, third from the west, fourth from the east, fifth have to be from the west. But different forces didn't want to wait, and they took the power by force. And they, most extreme Western people with the clubs and the weapons, try to take control over the East. They ban Eastern parties. They try, it will be election only with our party that was permitted. And that people didn't like this because they came with arms and they shoot on the both sides of the streets. The nephew of my wife called him from Ukraine. He told, he worked in the hospital, and then I walk, and these the armored vehicle went there, they're shooting, and I was just hiding behind the tree, and they shoot many people, but they missed me. So you understand, they started to fight with each other. Do Russia help them? I think yes. Do it supply them with the weapons? I will be very concerned, because of course it is many Russian tanks and others, but the same way I can say that United States supply ISIS with their weapons because they use Americans' tanks and American this. They have all this military depot on the east that's seized by these rebels. There, many of the volunteers who fight them from Russia, I don't know how many of them. Now it is many rumors that it is the Soviet military really involved in this. I philosophically cannot understand. If Putin really wants to fight there, why he sent only 1,000 people? It will make no sense. Then he has to send something much stronger. But it is part of this excuse. They fight with each other. What will happen, I don't know. It will be no good resolution of this fighting. Better one will be if they will agree, as I heard now, to negotiate with the eastern part, gives them some part of their independence, not more that Alaska have independence from the Washington, D.C. No, I'm very serious in this case, because what does it mean, federation? United States is federation. Doesn't mean that you will be independent. And then they will lick their scars for decades. The worst scenario, it will be if they will drown the eastern Ukraine in blood, took this power like she took in Iraq, and then it will be very similar situation there. It depends of the wisdom of the Ukrainian leaders, and depend would be able Russian and Western leaders work together, putting pressure on both sides of Ukraine. Please negotiate. They now name Eastern Ukrainians as the terrorists. They took it not from Americans but from Russians, because when Russia fought against the Chechen who wanted to fight against Russia, they named them terrorists, and they presented, we found here 2 passports, one from Saudi Arabia, one from Jordan. Oh, this is people from Middle East fighting there, not our beloved Chechens fighting there. Now they're doing the same. It's Russian fighting there. So it's a very tragic story. Tragic for Ukraine, because the economy was not in good shape and now taking apart. Tragic to Russia, because it is many of these families which tied it together for the 300 years. And tragic to the world, because we had very good relations between Russia and the United States in 1990, and now we're talking about new Cold War. I don't believe in Cold War because Russia is a superpower, but we can create hostility without any sense. So you think that we have to finish? Yes, I think I spent
Khrushchev.
15 minutes more. Thank you.
Dr. Khrushchev, let me
Thank you very much. You're very kind.
Dr. Khrushchev, thank you very much for reminding us once again that the Russian people and the American people have far more in common than we have differences. Thank you for tonight.
Thank you.